Welcome everyone to another edition of the Comic Review. My name is Eric, and this week, as you can tell from my attire, we are going to be covering one of the new Rebirth launch titles, one of the new Rebirth specials that came out this week on June 1st. So, as you can tell from other series on the channel, I thought it'd be fitting to start this review series on the Rebirth specials by going over Superman Rebirth #1. This issue is written by Peter Tomasi as well as Patrick Gleason, who I believe are both the new writers on the Superman comic series going forward with Rebirth. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this issue. I actually read a couple of reviews online before I filmed my review that didn't give this one that much, I guess, praise compared to the other three titles that came out this week. But I've got to say, this is actually, for me, one of the stronger ones. I think I got it more. I kind of got what the writers were going for. This wasn't so much... I think some people were trying to view this issue, from one review I read, as kind of a eulogy-type issue for the New 52 Superman Clark Kent. I more viewed it as kind of like a recap and getting... we're getting to know the pre-Flashpoint Superman who's going to be replacing him. I will say we do kind of focus on one aspect of the character that we will get into during the review, which I think that's kind of some people's complaint about the issue. And we kind of just dwell with it, but when you kind of look at the subject matter of the circumstances of where this issue is taking place, I think that kind of goes more into what's being talked about, the stories that are being talked about in this issue are being told the way they are. So let's go ahead, go into a review of the comic, and let's just jump right into what's going on in this issue. So the very first page of this issue does kind of start off like kind of in a eulogy type scene where Flashpoint Superman is kind of talking about his very, very limited experience with the New 52 Superman. They kind of talks about, I wish we would have gotten to know you more. So many questions, things I want to talk to you about, that kind of thing. Very much a regret coming out of pre-Flashpoint Superman. You kind of wonder if he's going to be questioning if he did the right thing by hiding himself and his Lois and their son from the outside world instead of maybe teaming up with the New 52 Superman. Maybe there would have been a different outcome. Maybe he would have still been alive if they would have done that kind of thing. You kind of wonder if that's kind of going through this character's head. But the first page of the story does give you a quick recap, especially in the pictures, of the Final Days of Superman storyline, especially from the point of pre-Flashpoint Clark coming into the issue. It definitely is told from his perspective on that. If you haven't read Final Days of Superman, you want to catch up on that, click here, I believe, and we will have a link to the playlist of the series that I just recently finished on Final Days of Superman. So give that a quick look if you want to. I can wait. Waiting. During this time of self-reflection, pre-Flashpoint Clark is floating above the still being constructed, I guess, monument to the New 52 Superman that's being built in Metropolis, which I find interesting. Some of these events are kind of mirroring the original Death of Superman in that regard, but I would almost feel like with as much, not animosity, but as many people who doubted the New 52 Superman, because in this world everyone's very skeptical about the superheroes, it seems, and the New 52 going into the Rebirth world, whereas in the pre-Flashpoint, people weren't skeptical about their heroes. I find it odd that the people of Metropolis would still put up a monument. I guess they are, he has done a lot of things for the planet and everything, but I would feel like it wouldn't be a major thing for them to put a monument up. I know he talks about like the statues getting ready to be created, but it just seemed kind of it seemed like it wouldn't be something that the people of this Metropolis would do for their Superman. That's just how I kind of feel on the issue. But regardless, they're building a monument. While he's going through this self-reflection, new pre-Flashpoint Clark, hears something in the catacombs underneath. He zips down there to find Lana Lang, who at first thinks that he is the New 52 Clark Kent. Even she's getting confused as to who's who in this world. She's down there to basically take the remains of New 52 Clark and have him buried with his Earth parents, which is one of the things I believe in the first part to the Final Days of Superman that he asked her to do for him, was to bury him with his parents. Pre-Flashpoint Clark admits that the reason why he is there is because he's kind of just basically waiting for New 52 Clark to get up. He then goes into kind of a brief explanation of, or a brief synopsis of the Doomsday storyline, the original Death of Superman, kind of telling her that story, so that way he can kind of tell her what he's kind of expecting at this point. I think this is the point in the story where a lot of people get down on this issue a little bit, because they spend so much time talking about New 52 Clark's death, and then we don't really see much of pre-Flashpoint Clark, of his past, other than the Death of Superman. It's almost like he's being defined by the Death of Superman story, which it's a fair assessment, but I think because of the subject matter, he's not going to talk to her at this time about the first time his car Zor-El landed on Earth. He's not going to talk about the Our Worlds at War storyline. He's not going to talk about the day Joker got magical powers and took over everything. He's not going to talk about any of these things. He's going to refer to the Death of Superman storyline. So I feel like, even though, yes, it's the one major storyline that we kind of concentrate on throughout this whole issue, some people may seem like it's like his defining storyline, but I feel like it's just in a story perspective, it's the only thing that, it's the only story that makes sense for him to tell. It's the only backstory. I will say something real quick about all the issues here with Rebirth, all these number ones. They are very much written to where you need to know backstory on what was going on, especially some more than others, but you need to kind of know backstory of what's going on going into this. They try to be as new reader friendly as possible, but for the most part, you have to have prior knowledge. You definitely have to have prior knowledge of the Last Days of Superman. Also, you have to have prior knowledge of the Lois and Clark comic series that was going on. You can pick up on what's going on, but these are all things you kind of need to know going into this issue, regardless. But for this specific story, we did not need to go into specifics of how this Clark's Krypton exploded. We didn't need to go into specifics on his first days as Superman, telling his life story. The death of Superman and how it's paralleling to this storyline and at this moment is what the important thing was as far as a storytelling point. So, like I said, and it's good, it's good to refresh for people who maybe have never read the story before. So I didn't personally have a problem with it. Pre-Flashpoint Clark then tells Lana that he's, again, waiting for, goes over how he kind of was resurrected using Kryptonian artifacts that he doesn't have access to in this world, as opposed to his old world in the old Fortress of Solitude. Lana then informs him that she knows where the Fortress of Solitude is, and now they need to team up. So they go to the Arctic, where New 52 Clark's Fortress of Solitude is, to gather up the Kryptonian artifacts, but they find out that the regeneration matrix that pre-Flashpoint Clark used to come back to life doesn't exist at least in this Fortress of Solitude. So they're really, from pre-Flashpoint Clark's perspective, there's no way to bring back New 52 Clark in this manner. Also, pre-Flashpoint Clark's body was still, I believe, intact at the end of Death of Superman, whereas New 52 Clark is pretty much in an urn at this point. He is basically turned into dust. I don't know if the regeneration matrix would have fully worked at that point, but who knows? There might be something to that. I mean, like I said, it's comics. We've got regeneration matrices. We've got purple healing / death rays. Whatever, it's comics. During the time of the Fortress, Clark notices the statue of his parents all of his parents holding up their respective worlds. He sees his Kryptonian parents as well as his Earth parents, and he's like kind of shocked that it never even occurred to him to put a monument up to his Earth parents in that regard. And he also sees part of the recording that New 52 Superman left for his Kara right during the I think part 3 Final Days of Superman. So it's kind of like he's being inspired, though he's always been the inspirational one on his planet. Almost like he was being inspired by his predecessor, I guess, essentially in this storyline. So Lana and Clark then go eventually to the Kent burial site and bury Clark next to his parents, which I thought were no longer there as part of Truth, but I can't remember now. For some reason I thought in Superman and Wonder Woman that the bodies were moved, but maybe they were put back. I have no idea. Suffice to say, all 3 Kents now are buried in the same spot. Clark is now buried with his parents. New 52 Clark is buried with his parents. And again, going back to that point of inspiration, pre-Flashpoint Clark creates a statue in the Fortress of Solitude of New 52 Clark, puts it up between his Earth parents holding up Earth, and he I think at this point has now realized that he needs to take on, retake essentially the mantle of Superman. Superman's always been called, one of his titles has always been the Man of Tomorrow, and so he says in the issue at the very last line, all tomorrow is missing is Superman. So this is going to directly lead into both Superman series coming out this month, and again, like I said, it's going to be him inspired by the New 52 Superman to come out of the shadows and to be Superman for the planet. Of the Rebirth titles that came out this week with the new #1s, the specials, I'd probably rank this one probably my second favorite of the 4. I can understand where they were going with the story, concentrating on the death of Superman storylines, both of them, in fact. But I realize the necessity of harping on those, even though there are many more good Superman stories over the years. I believe they weren't necessary. They would have just bogged down the narrative. We didn't need in this issue. And I mean, I guess it is technically an introduction issue to the status quo going forward. So I mean, that might be where people are looking at this from. But for the most part, we didn't need to have a going over the entire history of the pre-Flashpoint Clark Kent. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of that in Action Comics starting next week, as well as in the main Superman title. And if you read Lois and Clark, I mean, this is definitely a continuation of that story. I mean, everything in that is going to probably continue to this. So, I believe the story works properly the way it was presented. You didn't need to get into all that other backstory and everything. You just needed to know that this is, the Superman's dead. The Superman's waiting for him to basically resurrect. This is why, because this is what happened to him. Right. That's basically the main story beats of the story. And so I believe that what the writers were trying to accomplish with this, was accomplished. So again, story-wise, writing-wise, art direction-wise, I really like this book. It was very enjoyable. Like I said, probably my second favorite of the Rebirth titles that came out this week. If you're wanting to see what the storylines are going to pick up again, we got this week, I believe June 8th, is going to be Action Comics number 957. They're restarting the old numbering again, so that's where part of the storyline is going to take place. I believe that's the storyline that's going to have Luthor in his Superman armored suit, as well as a mysterious second Clark Kent. And I'm also really wondering, I mentioned this in another video, I can't remember which one, but I'm really waiting for pre-Flashpoint Clark Kent to try to get a job at the Daily Planet, because I mean, if they're really going for the essence of the characters, I mean, they've got to somehow reintroduce that this Superman is Clark Kent. So I'm very curious as to what they're going to do. Again, I don't know if they're going to do like a One More Day style kind of a thing and erase people's memories, or what they're going to do, but I'm really curious to see what's going to go on that. After that, following week, I believe that is June 15th, they will is going to be the actual Superman #1. This is Superman Rebirth #1. June 15th is going to be Superman #1. It's going to be the second series, so be on the lookout for that as well. The I want to say that might be the one that's more concentrating on Superman and his son's relationship, although that'll probably be a little bit in Action Comics as well. Honestly, can't remember as of this recording, so be on the lookout for both those books coming out. I'm going to try to do some reviews, maybe at least on the first issues. I don't know if I'm going to do the entire series, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys for checking out this video. Again, if you are a little bit lost on the what happened with New 52 Superman, why there's another Superman waiting for this Superman to come back from the dead, I want you to go ahead, if you could, and check out the Final Days of Superman playlist on my channel. Put a link up to it up here somewhere again. And if you want to go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would be very much appreciated. And I will see you guys in the next video. Later.